Hello and welcome to PostFunnel Insider. I'm Amit, Optimove's VP of Marketing. PostFunnel Insider is here to provide you with a succinct dose of content that should keep you up to date on what's going on in CRM marketing these days. We'll be broadcasting weekly on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. In today's PostFunnel Insider, we'll have PostFunnel's editor-in-chief reviewing this week's news. We'll be sharing insights and tips on how to choose the right KPI to measure your relationship marketing effectiveness. We'll also have our weekly debate, this time around the question of what is personalization? We'll be sharing our take on the maturity curve and evolution of the CRM Manager, and our highlight today is an interview with PaperSource's VP of Marketing who will be sharing from her experience. We have a whole lot of great content for you today, so let's get started with some headlines by PostFunnel's editor-in-chief, Nitsan Peled. Nitsan, what's news?
Hi Amit, what's up? Over the course of the past few months, we have been encouraging marketeers to take a good look at their offering and see if they can find any aspects of or combination of it that can be more relevant and thus popular in times of global pandemic, economic recession, social distancing, and self-quarantining. Now, we got a new suggestion for those people in charge of branding and communication. Take a good look at your brand, language, offering, and style, and try to predict what parts of it are perhaps offensive, and then be proactive about it. A little over than a week ago, we saw how HBO took off Gone with the Wind temporarily in order to put it back up with notes and warnings about the way the film is depicting slavery in the United States. Since then, others have followed, mostly after initial criticism came from people, consumers, protesters, basically the public. In recent days, Aunt Jemima, the breakfast foods brand that's owned by Quaker Oats Company, which in turn is owned by PepsiCo. So they announced they will be changing their name and logos since they include racial stereotypes originated in the antebellum South, a period known for its slavery. PepsiCo itself, again, the parent company or grandparent company, is pledging to do a lot in order to support social causes such as Black Lives Matter and gay rights, including more than $400 million set of initiatives over 5 years to lift up Black communities and increase Black representation at PepsiCo. Oh, and since I mentioned Antebellum, so the band Lady Antebellum announced that they will be changing their name to Lady A, again for the same reasons, because again, Antebellum South, a period that is known for slavery. And in the wake of Aunt Jemima's announcement, Uncle Ben's Rice and Mrs. Buttersworth also following down the same rebranding efforts for the same reasons. And of course, these acts of recognition come with mostly and after plenty of scrutiny and criticism from all directions, but overall, we see these actions as good, smart, sensitive, and just. The conversation surrounding them is educating many about blind spots that some of us were not even aware existed. That's from the Lady Antebellum's Lady A's announcement. And as a brand, being proactive about it, not waiting to become the conversation, but instead creating the conversation, leading it, is indeed something we support of. And it's never too late to go to do that. And we hope that the Washington's professional football team is on its way as well. See you next week.
Controversial comms are useful sometimes, but in these days, marketers must be thoughtful and sensitive. Thank you, Nitsan. As a marketer, the most valuable tips I got were from listening to my peers share from their experience. On that note, our next item is an interview with Liz Owens, VP of Marketing at PaperSource. This is where you want to pay close attention and listen carefully. There's a whole lot to learn from Liz's experience. Let's zoom her in. Hello, Liz Owens, VP of Marketing at PaperSource.
Hi.
How are you doing these days?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad given the circumstances. So for our viewers out there that aren't aware of what exactly is PaperSource, would you mind educating them?
Yes. So the people who are aware, are probably feeling their heart flutter a little bit because we have this like special power to just like win people over if you've ever been in our stores. But then we find that a lot of people have no idea what Paper Source is and kind of sometimes think that we're like Dunder Mifflin, which couldn't be further from the truth. So we're actually a 37-year-old lifestyle brand. Our founder, Sue Lindstrom, was an artist and started this brand truly through her travels. She would go to places far off, often to China or Japan, and wanted to bring back some of those artisanal wonders. And as a fine artist, a lot of that was paper. And so our original assortment had fine papers from around the world. She also was one of the first people to work with paper mills here in the United States and create her own color palette going direct to the mills. So all of that is still intact with our brand and part of our heritage. But over time, we've really become a gift shop where you can get unique gifts, cards, stationery, really everything that you want, but nothing that you need, and all these delightful little dandies that make you happy. And so if you haven't been to Paper Source, hopefully I've done it justice, because now post-COVID, you can actually shop online and you can go into the stores. We have about 100 that are open now, and kind of feel the wonder that the person who knows Paper Source feels.
There's nothing better than getting, that unique notebook or other type of stationary things to put on your desk.
Yeah.
So definitely. So as VP of Marketing, I'm assuming you're looking after all of the marketing operation of Paper Source. Would you mind sharing a little bit about how your org looks like and which areas do they look after?
Yeah. So marketing at Paper Source sits alongside e-commerce, but also what we call our content team. So what people may not know is we're also a design house. And so we do have designers who make, the wrapping paper, the calendars, all those products that you see. But adjacent to marketing is a content team that develops the videos, the photography, all the amazing content that really empowers my team. And then we sit alongside e-com because it's a digital world and a lot of the marketing is executed digitally. So in my experience, I have found that to be a really good structure for marketing to be able to be effective. And then within my team, we actually take on everything from all the traditional digital marketing channels like email, paid search, social, but I also oversee PR and communications, as well as customer insights, which includes the Optimove team and CRM. And then the other amazing thing about Paper Source being a lifestyle brand is marketing lives within all of us. So we're extremely cross-functional with our merchant teams. They are often thinking about marketing when they're thinking of the capsules and what to buy and what to design. And then our retail locations being this experience hub, they're the ones there kind of delivering that one-to-one marketing in real time and that consultation and the clienteling. So my team has like a broad umbrella, but we have a lot of tremendous partners adjacent to us, but then also like upstream on the product side and then downstream on the store side as well.
Interesting. So you're definitely like that type of octopus that has its arms all across the org.
Yeah.
I think that also what would help get a better idea is KPIs. So which KPIs do you follow religiously? Which are those that, if I wake you up in the middle of the night, you'd say, yes, that's up 5%.
Yes. So the most tried and true KPI, at least growing up here, and I've been with Paper Source for a decade, is traffic. And e-com traffic has been one where we have the clearest barometer. Obviously, we want to influence store traffic, but with us being street side, sometimes marketing doesn't have as much control over that. So I would say the one that wakes me up at night is traffic. And then some other KPIs are engagement, reactivation, and then as of recently, with some model changes that we've had as far as growing as a company, new customer acquisition is another KPI that we've been actively strategizing against.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned you've been a decade with Paper Source. So as another fellow marketer that's been in the company 10 years, I know that there are advantages and disadvantages. Would you mind sharing your trajectory within PaperSource and
Yeah.
how you grew from within?
Yeah. So prior to PaperSource, I worked in my dream, which was in ad agencies, and started to feel like something was missing. You had all that great intellectual knowledge and you'd bring together these amazing strategies, and then you'd hand them off to the client and kind of be like, I wonder if that worked. I wonder if we could have adjusted. And so I took a break, saw this job for PaperSource, which at the time I was a fan, and thought that little shop down the street needs someone who does what I do. And it turns out that they were a much larger organization, but really at that time, I think it was 28 stores. And so I came on and really built their whole digital marketing suite. They really were only using email, had just started to lean into e-commerce. So I really started just rolling my sleeves up, getting paid search going, getting affiliate going, working on KPIs and dashboards, and really starting to get into the customer data side. And then over time took on PR. Since that's my background, it made sense for me to take on PR and bring it into the marketing organization. And then in the last 4 to 5 years, have really started to expand what we had as a traditional catalog business and really take on some more CRM and customer insight practices within the marketing organization. So a lot of big data movement and learning, a lot of cleansing, a lot of codifying, a lot of work just taking years and years of data and trying to get it in a repository. And then I would say in the last 4 years, just being able to work through insights and really understand the customer more to help shape businesses like wedding. And then recently with Optimove, actually being able to make that actionable and bring it into the broader marketing organization so that the strategies don't just stop, there. It actually bleeds into what we're executing, how we're trying to engage the customer. So that sounds short, but it has been a 10-year journey, just kind of creating the mix, evolving the mix, and learning from it so that we can be a customer-led organization.
It seems like in the course of these 10 years, you've touched upon hands-on almost every different area in marketing. And I know from my experience, that is quite the same. I did all the online marketing, all the different things. So it helps me, yes, manage these areas better. But then on the other hand, many times, my team would say, you're too much into the details. Let us do our thing. So
Yeah.
do you also face that, or how do you balance it to make it, work for you?
Yeah. So at the beginning, there was no team. Really, our e-commerce and marketing team, I think, had a GM, myself, and 2 other women. And so truly everyone had to be part of strategy and execution. In the last 5 years, we've been fortunate enough to bring on talent in each of these areas. So I was relieved because by that time it was a lot. We were growing. We now have, by September, we'll have somewhere around 160 stores open. And when I started, it was 28. So that rapid fleet expansion just increased the need for marketing, which was a dream. So I think that helped me kind of take a step back, and then bringing in a really talented PR person who came from our merchandising side, bringing in a really talented insights and CRM person who had actually come from the world of email. So she was great at helping us change. They have been great partners to me, as well as the balance of the team. They do, to your point, have moments where they're like, we've got this. But I actually think PaperSource as a whole, we're so flat and cross-functional that our internal process and practices do allow everyone's ideas to have a forum. So we're not like the typical hierarchy. I mean, my team sits alongside me in meetings with our entire C-suite, where we talk about ideas and how we're going to solve problems. So I think compared to other organizations, we across all disciplines have these forums that are highly cross-functional. And like I stated earlier, marketing is not just the job of me and my team, but people bring us ideas from the merchandising side. We have to lean on our retail partners to kind of be our checks and balance. Like, how is this working? How is the customer responding to it? Tell me about the conversations you're having. And so it does become everybody's job. And so it does train you with different skills on just how to listen, yet guide. And I think that evolution, which came with Winnie, our CEO, who joined about 5 years ago, I think was helpful in pulling me out and helping us bring some experts in to grow in the right ways.
Sounds like a dream. I mean, having your team touch upon so many areas and not being siloed in marketing, right? I do performance marketing, so all I know is how to maximize that bid. But, they can see the bigger picture, which I think is ideal. And again, looking at those 10 years or even more in marketing in general, how do you see marketing has changed over time? Or how have your challenges as a marketer and a marketing executive changed in the course of the last 10 years or so?
Yeah, when I was in the agency, there was a lot of rhetoric and white papers around voice of the customer. And at that time, it felt like an aspiration and a concept and like a new construct of like the new CMO will be a chief customer officer. What I've seen in my time is better tools to actually achieving that, and better ways that brands can truly walk the walk and hear the voice of the customer and see that implemented. I think in the early days, voice of the customer meant you'd flash something up on social, the customer would vote, it'd be in your assortment. I think now that relationship and that two-way talk is much richer. And I think we've actually been able to tap on it in recent months between COVID and Black Lives Matter. I mean, I don't know if we would have had a path if we didn't just listen to our customers and use the channels that we had to make the adjustments we needed to in those times.
And would you mind sharing some specific adjustments you've made? I mean, I've seen so much creativity during these times, even though challenging and tragic times, but so much brand creativity. So can you share some examples for you guys?
Yeah. So our biggest challenge was we had to shut all doors. So we had 135 stores, and then a month before COVID, we had acquired 30 Papyrus stores, which was our main competitor. So when COVID came, we really lost access to people by shutting roughly 165 doors. And e-com had always had a really healthy engagement, but when you have that many doors, it's hard to really just see it all come on e-com. Where we won was our customer in a time like COVID, where things are uncertain, where you don't know, what tomorrow is going to look like. You want your house and your, like, the things you can control to be happy. And because we were already like coined a happy place for so many, when Easter came around, when Mother's Day came around, we were a go-to. They actually wanted to hear from us because they didn't know what else to do in their house. There was a big holiday coming and they wanted to celebrate, but you can't go to church, you can't go out. And so we were able to listen to the customer, see that they wanted ways to delight their children, see that they wanted ways to connect with people who they couldn't celebrate their birthdays with, or even simple connections like, anyone who was 65 and older, you just needed to keep your distance for their safety. And so greeting cards and stationery became a way that you could stay connected and express your love. And so by listening to the customer, we were able to take a couple user journeys that happened in the store and make them more online friendly. So we started to do more bundling where the customer didn't have to go and try to find every item for their Easter basket or for Mother's Day. You could just come online, one click, it would go to you, it could go to the person. The other thing that we saw happen was greeting cards. So we've always had them. it's not the first thing you would think about buying online, but we just thought about the experience that was happening in stores where we had racks and racks of all these sentiments that were right for all these occasions. And we brought that whole assortment online, plus we started bundling. So when Mother's Day came, it was a bundle of cards that was for your mom, your mother-in-law, your grandmother, because none of us were going to get to see our moms on Mother's Day, so you had to make it extra special. And then our merchant teams really reacted quickly and bought into some categories like sympathy, get well, because unfortunately due to the virus, a lot of people were finding themselves needing to send those types of well wishes. And so they, being experts in cards, were able to bring more to the customer at their time of need. And then separate, hats off to the merchant team. We had, in preparation for flu season, bought some luxury hand sanitizers. And when supply just kind of went down nationally, we became a hot spot in PR for lists about where to still buy hand sanitizer. And then they were able to bring in some masks that were cute, something you would expect from Paper Source. They brought those in early and our customer just needed them. So that voice of the customer really helped shape our merchandising. And then our supply chain team and our warehouse team was able to pivot and deliver, bundles and things in a way that the customer needed to just make it easy, pain-free, and just that delight that they were craving in the time of COVID.
That's amazing. You leveraged the type of perception of the brand and just adjusted and perfected the customer experience to make sure that, people are still getting that type of experience that they wanted to get from Paper Source, even though 130 stores are shut. Amazing.
Yep.
And we're almost at time. So back to the question I asked earlier about what you've seen in marketing in the last 10 years. What are you expecting to see? And I always like to end up interviews this way. What are you expecting we'll see in the future? How will marketing, change again? So you mentioned that when you were in the agency, it was the ideal of customer centricity, and then technology made it possible. What do you expect coming up next?
Well, it's interesting because we have some expectations that are a little bit more short term. So with reopening stores, we actually had to think about reopening in a different way. Our stores were an experience hub, but we know that people are still trying to keep distance. We know that workshops aren't necessarily going to operate the same. So we've continued some of that momentum from COVID to offer subscriptions instead of in-person workshops. We're doing Zoom workshops and continuing that even as communities start to open up. So we have some short-term expectations where customers want ease, they're going to have higher intent when they're shopping, and they're going to want to feel safe. And so from a marketing front, that does shift some of our omni-channel messaging because our stores look different now. There's more bundles, the staffing's a little bit different. We want to be able to satisfy that customer who wants to come in and shop and feel normal again, but we want to honor, the safety of everyone and do that in a way that, allows them to feel comfortable. So we have some short-term adjustments that we're making for now as the stores are opening, curbside delivery, continuing bundles. Long term, we're still like everyone else in the world thinking about what does holiday look like. We're seeing that it could come back. We're seeing some schools shift calendars to offer a larger gap over holiday. And so we're keeping some of these ideas in the tank and keeping them running because the customer may want that again. They may need to be at home and engaging in different ways. And then I think a year from now, hopefully there's more progress on treatment, cures, testing. And I think, again, our store experience will evolve. The customer will evolve. I would say if there's one thing I predict, it's just additional tech enablement and just getting that customer intimacy with technology right. And so I think we'll see just more like online to offline options, or see them get better, so that that customer can be more planful in their trips out, because we know everyone's learned a lot from this time of COVID.
So the consumer probably has changed for good, and for brands out there, it's just about understanding them, creating different scenarios, and understanding how to put them in place quickly and right, and keep at the speed of the customer.
Yep.
Liz Owens, VP Marketing at PaperSource, thank you so much for your valuable time and for some great insight.
Thanks to you and the Optimove team.
Liz, thanks a million for making time to speak with me and share from your experience. And now to our weekly hack. Measuring campaign effectiveness might seem something quite straightforward, right? You send out an email campaign, look at your opens, clicks, and such. But what do those metrics actually teach us? Not a whole lot. If you saw last week's broadcast, we had a heated debate about whether or not to use control groups when measuring campaign effectiveness. Needless to say, the Optimove approach is that there is no other way to measure campaign effectiveness without using holdout groups. Now, once you do decide to use these groups, things start becoming a bit complicated. The next step is to decide which KPI will reflect effectiveness: revenue, deposits, website visits. For our next segment, I'll be handing off to Optimove Strategic Services Team Lead Scott Shapiro, who will guide you through how to solve the dilemma of which KPI to choose to reflect on your CRM effectiveness. Scott, stage is yours.
Hi, Amit. Thanks for having me. Today, I want to talk about the importance of choosing the right KPI for each marketing action. Like audience segmentation, don't pay a price of generalization when measuring the success of your campaigns. Your team spends time putting together the right copy, the right template, the right audience. Make sure you're also using the right measurement. So I want to talk about, when I mention the right KPI, it's about tying the marketing call to action to the measured results. If you send an email asking your customers to buy pants, you wouldn't want to be judged on whether they bought shirts. So let's look at 3 different levels of campaign measurement. At the entry level, entry doesn't necessarily hold any less value. Most marketers are familiar with using email deliverability metrics to measure the success of an email. However, we need to know that opens are predominantly a measure of the subject line copy, whereas clicks are more a measure of the email template itself. Even at the basic level, we already are starting to realize that we need to tie the evaluating metric to the corresponding action. At the next level, intermediate, as an Optimove client, you likely have moved past exclusively using opens and clicks and started using other customer behaviors as campaign measurements. Frequently, we see measures like net revenue, number of deposit days, total deposit amount in the gaming world, things like total purchases, number of orders on the e-commerce side. Using these activities and these purchase behaviors opens up the ability to do incremental measuring against a control group, something you just fundamentally can't do with just opens and clicks, as the control group doesn't actually receive an email. However, while KPIs like revenue and orders are sort of evergreen metrics that define the success of a campaign, what if your campaign strategy has like a more specific call to action? For example, what if you have an email series that is really promoting a new loyalty program, an existing loyalty program to your active customers? Create a KPI that actually measures the exact number of signups that you're seeing to this loyalty program and connect that action from the email to the actual event itself. Similarly, if you have a series of emails that's encouraging customers to buy sweaters, measure how many bought sweaters. If you're trying to get customers to convert from being casino players to sportsbook players or to try a new product like the lottery, measure if those customers are actually doing the action that you are suggesting they do in the marketing content. If you're a subscription business, for example, we have one fashion subscription company that measures changes in their frequency. Did someone increase or decrease their subscription time frame? It could also be your subscription amount, upsells and downsells. Instead of just measuring necessarily maybe the actual amount itself, kind of look at the ordinality and the way that this is moving. Lastly, perhaps your business has a long purchase history, purchase time frame. If you see customers go maybe 6 months without shopping, maybe there's a long research period, use website visits as sort of an interim step in the buying cycle. So the bottom line is that nearly any data point that you have available in your Optimove instance can be turned into a campaign KPI. And this can greatly improve the relationship between your campaign calls to action and the evaluation of your measurement. If you need any help translating a marketing initiative into a KPI itself, don't hesitate to reach out to your CSM, or our strategic services team can help you create the logic that you would like to see. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Scott. CRM marketing is an interesting and quite sophisticated discipline, and those who chose to manage CRM marketing go through a whole lot in order to master the field. Rony Vexelman, Optimove's Director of Product Marketing, researched this and modeled the CRM marketer's maturity and evolution curve. Rony, please do share what you came up with.
Hi, everyone. Welcome again to this weekly PostFunnel Insider. Amit, thank you for passing this on. And today I will talk to you a bit about an evolution curve, or the way to think about your progress as a marketing and marketing team. For those of you who do not know who I am, I'm Rony Vexelman, Optimove Director of Product Marketing. Now, let's get right to it. What I'm going to share with you is something that we've been working on for a while here at Optimove. It's kind of like this concept that a marketer evolves over time and their marketing team evolve over time. And we're looking at it in 5 different levels, from beginner level 1 all the way to advanced level 5, and the different categories. So segmentation, execution, analysis, the tech that you use, and at the end of the day, the time to market of your initiatives. Now, let's really quickly, I'm going to start high level. I'll then tell you where you can find this more in detail if you want to read more about this. I have kind of like a level 1 in the segmentation area. It's about descriptive values of your customers that you're using. In level 2, start to use historical and demographic data. Towards level 5, you're using multidimensional. You're mixing things from different categories that are above it, and you're also bringing in maybe more advanced things. Maybe you're doing a bit of machine learning, maybe you're doing a bit of predictive modeling, and so forth. Now, in the execution, you start with batch and blast, and very quickly as you mature, you leave it behind. You understand that there's a smarter way of doing it, of leveraging the segments that you have to kind of like do a more personalized approach to marketing. You start to use campaign testing. You start to create moment-based marketing. At the end of the day, you let your customers lead their own journeys with customer-led moment-based marketing, meaning you're creating the framework and you're letting your customer decide what campaign to receive and what interaction to receive or to trigger based on their behavior. Then you're going into the analysis side. So we've got the engagement metric that we start with, of course, opens and clicks. And very quickly, you'll start to use other things, uplift measurement, long-term metrics like future value and lifetime value. And then you're going to look at CRM contribution. What part of your revenue is considered to come from CRM? If you would stop doing your CRM activities altogether, what would that impact be? And you can do this at a global level or at a channel or local level. Then we've got kind of like the technology where early on it's siloed, of course, also technology, also teams working from silos, you know, and eventually you go all the way into a centralized decisioning system that has AI at its center to kind of like orchestrate the campaigns and enable those customer-led moment-based marketing initiatives that you are creating. And if we're talking about time to market, how long does it take you to get your initiatives out there? If initially you're siloed, then of course you're very slow. There's a lot of dependency in other teams, not only within the marketing, but also with other departments of your company. And as you get towards the end, you become a lot faster, moving from data insights to data activation and to campaign and journey orchestration. Now, I hope you found this interesting. If you want to hear more about this, then we have a blog that's just been published on today. For those who are not watching this live, then the Thursday that just passed about this subject. And there's also a white paper that goes into depth into each single level and what characterizes the marketer at each one, so that you can kind of like benchmark yourself and also learn how you can advance across the different levels. Back to you, Amit.
Thank you, Rony. And now it's debate time. When you think about personalization, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Hello F-name, product recommendation, perhaps next best action? The term personalization is very, very broad, but there are different ways to go about the essence of it. We brought together Optimove's GMs in North America and EMEA to debate on this matter and share their take on things. Please welcome Moshe Demri, Optimove's VP Revenue and EMEA's General Manager, and Yoav Susz, VP Revenue and North America's General Manager. Hello, Moshe. Hello, Yoav. This is how it's going to work. Each will have 30 seconds to present their take on what is personalization, and then another 30 seconds to respond to the other take. Ready? Yoav, your 30 seconds start now.
So I'm just going to start and say that I'm playing devil's advocate here, to be perfectly honest. But I think that when we all think about personalization, the most important thing is ultimately what do we end up showing to the customer? Personalization is very much another way of thinking about product recommendations or content recommendations. And I think that what's been found to be most effective is that if you know, or if we know in your case, Amit, that you love button-down shirts and that's the only thing that you wear, the most important thing that I can do is make sure that I show you those products. I need to show you those products when you come onto the website. I need to show you those products when I send you an email.
Yoav. Cut you off. Moshe, you ready? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually think that personalization is actually starts from the beginning of the funnel, and the most important thing when you personalize is actually splitting your customer base into segments, because in order to actually get insights and understand the effect of your marketing on those segments, you actually need to start there and then slowly go and further optimize those segments.
Just on time. Yoav, your feedback?
I think that you obviously need to understand your segments, but why can't you do that after a campaign has been sent? Like, isn't it more important to be able to make sure that you're personalizing by content? I can then take that big group of people and cut it down. I can look at each sub-audience within that bigger audience, but ultimately the thing that's going to drive the most value is, am I showing the right products to the right person?
At the right time through the right channel. Moshe, you're up. Feedback.
Yeah, I think probably the truth is laying somewhere in between. I think definitely product recommendation is an important part of it, but I think working in recommendation at the end of the day, it's a feature you should use for the segments that you are actually building. So I think the most important part will be actually understanding who are your most valuable customers, who are your VIPs, who are your top low-tier customers, who are in risk of churn. And based on that, you are actually changing your message and content. Within this message and content, you can then also personalize based on the product, but it doesn't really replace segmentation, in my opinion.
All righty. So one approach.
Just a last comment there, Amit. I 100% agree with Moshe. Moshe is right. Personalization without segmentation is worthless, guys.
I must say that you debated the other side very nicely. Thank you very much, Moshe and Yoav. Again, I love this debate. Thanks, guys. I'm loving this debate segment. Thank you, Yoav and Moshe. And that's a wrap. If you have any questions, suggestions, feedback, or anything else you'd like to share with us, comment on this broadcast or email us at contactus@postfunnel.com. This broadcast goes live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So if you'd like to get notified before our next show or would like to see previous shows, follow us on either of these channels. We'll be here again next Thursday with more thoughts, ideas, best practices, and more all-around relationship marketing. Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time.